In this presentation, 69A, we're going to re-examine the Shroud of Turin and the legends and history of the Shroud of Turin. According to Christian tradition, the image of Edessa was a holy relic consisting of a square or rectangle of cloth upon which a miraculous image of the face of Jesus had been imprinted. Quote, by this account, King Abgar of Edessa wrote to Jesus asking him to come cure him of an illness. Abgar received a reply letter from Jesus declining the invitation but promising a future visit by one of his disciples. One of the 70 disciples, Thaddeus of Edessa, is said to have come to Edessa bearing the words of Jesus, by the virtues of which the king was miraculously healed. This tradition was first recorded in the 4th century by Eusebius of Caesarea, who said that he had transcribed and translated the actual letter in the Syriac chancery documents of the king of Edessa, but who makes no mention of an image. The report of an image, which accrued to the legendarium of Abgar, first appears in the Syriac work, The Doctrine of Adai. According to it, the messenger here called Ananias was also a painter, and he painted the portrait which was brought back to Edessa and conserved in the royal palace. The first record of the existence of a physical image in the ancient city of Edessa, which is now called Urfa, was by Evagrius Scholasticus, writing about AD 593, who reports, quote, a portrait of Christ of divine origin, Theotoktos, which effected the miraculous aid and defense of Edessa against the Persians in 544. Now, all this is, you can check this in Wikipedia on the image of Edessa. Now, in AD 384, the pilgrim Egeria was given transcripts of the correspondence of Abgarus and Jesus, but she did not report an image. The next stage of development appears in the Doctrine of Adai, or Thaddeus, around AD 400, which told of a court painter among a delegation sent to Abgar by Jesus, who painted a portrait of Jesus to take back to the master. Quote, when Hanan, the keeper of the archives, saw that Jesus spoke thus to him by virtue of being the king's painter, he took and painted a likeness of Jesus with choice paints and brought with him to Abgar the king, his master. And when Abgar the king saw the likeness, he received it with great joy and placed it with great honor in one of his palatial houses. That's from the Doctrine of Adai, chapter 13. So that is an image, it's one of the earliest images, supposedly, of the face of Jesus or Yeshua. Notice that the three pointers, downward pointing parts of the beard, and the owl-like eyes, and the long hair, which characterize the painting. Now, the successors of Abgar reverted to paganism, so the bishop placed the miraculous image inside a wall with a miraculous ever-burning lamp. Thus, the image was later found again after a vision, according to the legend, on the very night of the Persian invasion. It had not only had it miraculously reduced itself on the tile, but the bishop of Edessa used a fire in which oil flowing from the image was poured to destroy the Persians. This is an image of the ever-burning lamp. That means a long, long-lasting lamp. In the course of the reconstruction from a flood about AD 544, Procopius wrote that a cloth bearing the facial features of a man was discovered hidden in the wall above one of the gates of Edessa. Then the text of Jesus' letter, including a promise that, quote, no enemy would ever enter the city, was inscribed over the city gate, but does not mention an image. The Syriac Chronicle of Edessa, written in 540-550 AD, also claims divine interventions in the siege, but does not mention the image. And some 50 years later, then, Evagrius Scholasticus, in his ecclesiastical history, mentions an image in the relief of the siege, attributing it to a God-made image, a miraculous imprint of the face of Jesus on a cross. So these are the earliest images we have, and mentions of what we now know as the Shroud of Turin. Now, the veil of Veronica, or the sudarium, is a Christian relic of a piece of cloth which, according to tradition, bears the likeness of the face of Jesus, not made by human hand, that is an archairopoeton, one made by human hands. Various existing images have been claimed to be the original relic or early copies of it. This vision of Veronica also has the pointed beard, the long hair, the owl-like eyes, and so on. The closest written reference is the miracle of Jesus healing the bleeding woman when she touched the hem of Jesus' garment that you find in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. She was later identified as Veronica by the apocryphal Acts of Pilate, and the story was later elaborated in the 11th century by adding that Christ gave her a portrait of himself on a cloth, with which she later cured Tiberius. The story of the image's origin is related to the sixth station of the cross, wherein Saint Veronica wiped the blood and sweat from his face with her veil as Jesus carried the cross on the Via Dolorosa to Calvary. So according to some versions, Saint Veronica later traveled to Rome to present the cloth to the Roman Emperor Tiberius. The veil has been said to quench thirst, cure blindness, and even raise the dead. The first written evidence of the story is from the Middle Ages, and that's during the 14th century, when the veil became a central icon in the Western Church. In the words of art historian Neil MacGregor, quote, "From the 14th century on, wherever the Roman Church went, the Veronica would go with it." So here's a typical icon painting used in Eastern Orthodoxy, which has the tripartite beard and the long hair and the owl-like eyes. So all these very early images are obviously from some kind of original prototype or an actual image of Jesus. So the question is, was it also the Shroud of Turin? Now, author Ian Wilson has argued that the object venerated as a Mandylion from the 6th to the 13th centuries was in fact the Shroud of Turin, folded in four and enclosed in an oblong frame so that only the face was visible. Like this. This is where it was folded in two and then folded in two again so that just a face appeared. Now, Wilson cites documents in the Vatican Library and the University of Leiden, Netherlands, which seems to suggest the presence of another image at Edessa. A 10th century codex, Codex Vossianus Latinus Q 69, found by Gino Zaninato in the Vatican Library, contains an 8th century account saying that an imprint of Christ's whole body was left on a canvas kept in a church in Edessa. And it quotes a man called Smera in Constantinople, saying, "King Abgar received a cloth on which one can see not only a face but the whole body," in Latin, non tantum, and the whole body itself. And you can check that out on the Wikipedia image of Edessa. So you go to New Patron Series number 69B, re-examining the Shroud of Turin to get some scientific studies of an update on this issue, because I think it's a very important issue.